morning. Welcome to the Monday, September 10th, Kilba Hills Board of Commissioners meeting. We will call our meeting to order. And with that, if you would please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A couple of comments before we move into our moment of silence. First, many of you may have heard about the passing of Glenn Ewer, and the entire Outer Banks community has lost a giant in the art world, and just a remarkable man in our community. He left an indelible mark on our community, even providing images for the town's 50th anniversary cookbook. So if you've seen our cookbook, compliments to Glenn and his touch. So we're all keeping Pat, his wife, and their family in our thoughts and prayers. Also, today is September 10th, so tomorrow is a date that none of us can forget, September 11th. It's now known as Patriots Day, and none of us will forget the events that occurred on September 11th, 2001. That tragic time always should be remembered, since it highlighted the bravery, love, and spirit of American values that overcame unimaginable terror. Please keep all of those affected, along with the incredible first responders across this country that stand guard for us day and night without fail. And also, before we move into this moment of silence, with the looming pending Hurricane Florence, we still do not know the path with any certainty, but we do know it's going to take a significant toll in the Carolinas and across North Carolina. We'll know more in the coming days about the impact here specifically, but as we move into our moment of silence, let's just keep our brethren across the state and our local community in your thoughts and prayers as well. And with that, we'll move into a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Okay, next up is the agenda approval. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Okay, you may have noticed our public hearing that was originally scheduled for this evening on the final phase of construction and redevelopment at the Public Works Complex has had to be canceled. Due to the size of the project, 3 bids were required in order to open any of them. We did not receive 3 bids, so this project will be rebid in the future, and the this public hearing will will likewise be rescheduled. So once we have an opportunity to rebid. So with that, we will move on to public comment. No sign-ups. Is there anyone that wishes to speak at this public comment time? No? All right, everyone wants to get home and keep preparing, right? All right, let's move then to introductions and presentations, and we welcome Aaron McCall with the Nags Head Woods Ecological Preserve for the annual report. And Aaron, I've had a chance to look through what you already sent us. I'm excited to have you, and it looks like a great report this evening.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, and staff. I appreciate you letting me speak today. What I'm going to present on today is coming directly out of the report and stuff like that, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I will try to move through it fast because I know a lot of people have a lot of other things to think about and do. But at any point, if you have any questions on something I'm presenting, just please speak up and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. And if anyone wants to follow up with this stuff after reviewing the report more at a later time, I'm happy to do that as well. Maybe. Which one do I push? Left or right? All right, I got you. All right, so we currently have 5 full-time staff there working out of the Nags Head Woods office. Many of them are working on different things. They don't really directly tie into Nags Head Woods. That falls strictly underneath my jurisdiction. And Jennifer Gilbert, who's conservation coordinator, that helps me. I just want you to know we have other staff out there that now works in the office. For a couple of years, it was strictly just a 1 or 2 person staff, so we've increased. So what I'll go over today is this visitor service, outreach and community, conservation, restoration, and biology, and beyond Nags Head Woods. So visitor services really takes into just Nags Head Woods and the components of that, and being open to the public. And a lot of this has to do with just outreach, whether it's working with the Dare County Sheriff's Office camps, or working with universities like Coast Studies Institute who comes in and does field trips, or even like just homeschools and other things like that. And we're open to the public 7 days a week, dawn till dusk, about 10 miles of hiking trails. And as everyone knows, it was a really wet summer this year, and we're still seeing quite a bit of water in the interdental ponds, and quite a few of our trails kind of went underwater for long periods of time, so we did reroute a lot of our trails. And as things have dried up, we have reopened old paths back up, but I'm assuming we'll probably be closing them a little bit. Yeah. Visitor service, the ADA trail. In the past year, it's a very popular trail. It's a boardwalk, and it's also a concrete path. As you guys know, it incorporates the old lift station area down there for the sanitation thing, about this 4-acre tract that KDH owns. We also had a lot of problems with people parking down there and not allowing for the ADA access. So this year, we kind of put up more efficient signs. We're working with a towing agency, and we talked with KDH police just about trying to corral people back and things like that, and getting them not blocking those ADA things so that people can enjoy that need to have those access. And in the same process, one of the reasons that we had this type of situations, if you've been back in our parking lot area in the past couple years, without having lines and things like that, and vehicle sizes, you can get 4 or 5 vehicles, and if they get crooked, they can easily congest it up. So with receiving a grant funding from the Outer Banks Community Foundation, about a year or so ago, we redesigned our parking lot and made some improvements out there. And really what it entails is an actual concrete parking lot with lines, and ADA accessible access, 4 service parking lots for our company vehicles to have things, better drainage, so we have swales in there that now come in and hold water, and we've also done some planting in there using more pollinator type vegetation around the area and things like that. So definitely we've seen an improvement, and really it has to do with just, it's not much bigger, but just having lines and structure seems to work well when people are parking. Outreach and community. This falls under very similar to stuff I said. We work with a lot with the universities. Fall break and alternative spring break are a big time for us. Appalachia State has been, I think, going 8 years now they've worked with us. And this really entails a big chunk of volunteer work that we get from these kids. They're usually here for about 30 hours for a week. And that incorporated other volunteers. So we've had about 70 different individuals volunteer back in Nags Head Woods last year, and that equaled to about 1,800 hours of volunteer time. So a lot of the stuff that we're able to do, whether it's fixing bridges or cleaning up or dealing with invasives, has a lot to do with the volunteers and outreach and having these universities come down. We've had them as far up as New York, Ohio, but we do tend to always get like Appalachia State and Asheville and things of that way. And it's really great to have these kids come down here, work with us, learn a little bit about the Nature Conservancy, learn a little bit about the Outer Banks, and really help get some things done. We also offered over 20 guided hikes this year. That's free to the public. And we also did other types. We have basically an intern we call a preserve assistant, Riley Kelly, who worked with us this year about 35 hours a week, and she offers programs for the visitors that show up, whether it's a guided hike down the Roanoke Trail or just what we call kind of Interpretive Friday, where we have our pavilion, like open house thing, where there's tables set up with different things that people can learn about, touch, feel, that type of thing, interact with them. We're also working with the aquarium and partnering with them for the Sea to Sound program, which basically takes place going across the woods from the ocean to the sound, where the kids learn about the ecological things of the barrier islands from the maritime forest to the ocean to the sound. And we're helping to fund it for First Flight Elementary School and Nags Head Elementary School. I also wanted to let you know, we also have reprinted, republished, Everyone Helps His Neighbors, in memory of Nags Head Woods. If you haven't read this book, it's interviews that were done of family members that come from that time frame in the woods. We're going to have like kind of a signing at Wave Riders on September 27th, and I do have a copy for you guys to put in your library, so I'll be bringing that to you guys so you guys can have that for your library. And there is a way online of ordering that, and we do have some copies over at our office as well. So I encourage all of you guys to come out to that signing, or at least touch base if you're interested in the book, and I will get a nice copy for you guys to have at your library. Outreach and community, we're always working to keep the 5K race back in there. Improving the parking lot and the decking area in the last couple of years has really helped with that race. If you've been over there, it's actually made a little better flow and all those things, so we've been appreciative to that. And we've also worked with Wings Over Water, the big thing that's done with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and outreaching that, offering hikes and things in there. And we're working with Wildlife Resource Commission, and they're going to be offering, actually coming up, a wintertime bird education thing where they'll teach people about calls and different type of birds that would be in the Outer Banks in the fall and the wintertime. So that's something that's being offered out of our facility as well. Just some things within the biology thing. We had a professor actually document what they call the duckweed firetail darner damselfly. It's a lot of words for a small little insect, but that's the first time it was documented in Nags Head Woods this summer. We've worked with Dominion Power as we're working on our right-of-ways and having to maintain the right-of-ways, as I know the towns are familiar with having to maintain right-of-ways at Dominion. As we have to remove certain shrubby high vegetation, we've been able to incorporate pollinator-type species within our things. These would be seasonal flowering things from milkweeds to other types of native plants and stuff. So this has been a good partnership where they have actually helped to pay for the seeding or the plants, and we've been able to use volunteers to plant them, or actually Dominion Power has helped in those aspects as well. So as we have to maintain 4 miles of right-of-way and remove certain things, we're able to actually kind of just a little bit diversify our habitat through that area. Invasive plant control is always going on in the woods. We've been dealing most recently with Russian olive and Japanese silkgrass. A lot of that's showing up within the roads outside. Some of it gets delivered from just cuts of people bringing in their yard debris. And also Russian olive can be transplanted by birds and things of that nature. So we're always dealing with that stuff, and those are ongoing type of things. Controlled burn, we did about 12 acres of prescribed fire this year. That was a summertime burn that we did. It's not huge. We're never going to be doing huge amounts of things, but we're trying to burn out areas and control things that would be adjacent to neighborhoods. Next year, if conditions are right, we'll be looking at burning all of our marshes, so that will equal about 200 acres. This is all done under contractual work with the Forest Service. We have a good partnership with them, and we're just really trying to maintain both the integrity of the woods and at the same time reducing fuel, so that if we were to get another wildfire, we have these type of control buffers and things like that. Once again, Ohio State was a volunteer group that helped put the fire breaks in prior to us burning, so it was really good to have those kids out there helping us with that. This is a lot of words. Basically, it comes down to the deer management program. In a sense, we still have a program back there. It's a $50 fee. Right now we have around 20 registered hunters this year, anywhere 20 to 40 about registered hunters. As you know, our season runs till January 1st. It's bow only, and then we also have an extended season that will run in the middle of January to February. The reason I put this up there to talk about it is one of the biggest issues that we're having is the interface of people no longer staying on hiking trails, and as the hunters are participating in the hunt, they pay a fee, they have access to be outside of the trail areas, and they have to be 100 yards off of any trails or any private property within our designated boundaries. So when the interactions start to occur more and more outside of our trails, where hunters are spending time out there and they're having people walk underneath of their stands, or walking dogs or things like that. It's not really, it can be a safety issue, but most of it's also a burden to a hunter who's paying a fee the spending time, maybe sitting there for 2 or 3 hours and someone comes in. So I put that out there. We'll probably be posting some things through social media, just letting the general public know, hey, hunting's going on. We still encourage hiking. We have 10 miles of hiking trails, but please stay in those designated areas during this time frame. Beyond Nags Head Woods, once again, a lot of work. We have this in the back part of our written thing, but the bottom line is, as you can see, TNC in the Northeast region, we manage just under 60,000 acres. A lot of this falls underneath my jurisdiction, from conservation easements to the other type of management that we have, from hunting leases, all this stuff, from basically the Virginia line up to Roanoke Rapids. We're working restoring flood connectivity on the Roanoke River, looking at fish passages, looking at oyster reefs along our areas, buffering for shoreline erosion and improving oyster habitat. These are all things that we're working on out of our office, and always happy to talk about these things or give you more information as you desire. I appreciate your time today, and I'm always happy to answer any other questions, or if you have stuff for other staff that you see TNC is working on, please feel free to reach us there. We'll be happy to try to help. Thank you.
One quick question.
Thank you, Aaron.
What do previous year's deer harvest numbers look like?
So generally basically the numbers that I get all come in by hunters that register in there, and then they send in a survey. For the most of the part, I've been there 19 years now. Most of the time we harvest about 10 to 12 deer. Last year, 1 was reported. Now, winters were pretty hard. I'm still seeing deer in there. We still see sign of deer. We had, a pretty harsh winter. It wasn't, my hunter hours were down. Some of my hunters that hunt a lot of hours were frustrated by some of the people in the woods, and so they backed out. And when you have guys that have been hunting that place for 20-some years, and they get frustrated and they don't hunt, you definitely see the harvest takedown. And there is speculation, and I can't answer for sure of what the effect of the coyote population is and how it affects the deer. Without really, investing a lot of money and effort in that. As you guys know, that the town Nags Head did trap quite a few coyotes. I know that the Park Service has looked at that and different things. And my hunters are allowed under that Dare County permit to take coyotes. I give them permission to do that if they so desire. Not a lot of my hunters saw coyotes, but then again, there was not a lot of hunter effort last year. So I know that's not a straightforward answer, but that's
Good answer.
just based on the data that I get. And so, any other questions? Well, I appreciate your time. I wish everyone to have a safe week. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
Take care. We will move on then to first item under new business. The Outer Banks Chamber of Commerce at the last meeting read their request for us to consider amending Chapter 153 zoning to modify the ordinance to create opportunities for developers to address the Outer Banks housing crisis. After that presentation, we had discussed to add this as a topic for our meeting tonight, to see if there's any other discussion by the board. So I'll open the floor for discussion, thoughts, input.
I would like for us to instruct staff to kind of look at some of the things that the county's done. And they've kind of got a head start on us on, as far as looking into some of these recommendations from the Chamber of Commerce, and they set a pretty good example. They may have already done some of the tough legwork and writing and creating some updates, but I kind of like to follow that template that the county's done and see what can be made of this, and then, maybe draft some changes that can be forwarded to the planning board for consideration.
Okay. Thank you. Other comments or thoughts?
No, pretty much along the same lines. I kind of like some of the stuff that they were talking about from the chamber standpoint, and I would support looking at that.
I think there's a couple things that they suggested that might work. Allowing duplexes on smaller lots is one thing. There may be one or two others that have some validity. One of the issues as far as we're concerned here in Kill Devil Hills is we already have the smallest lots overall compared to all the other towns. And we have the most lot coverage too. So we're kind of getting maxed out on those things. I don't know how much further we can go in that. We certainly don't want to have a lot of smaller lots. We have the highest density for multi-use also. We tried a workforce housing project, and I think the results were kind of, I think they were kind of disappointing, and I don't know whether anything like that would work again. I don't know if we find a developer that'd be willing to go along with it, considering the way the other one worked out. A couple other things too, that we allow staff parking here in town already. And we already have the highest inventory of houses that affordable is the word. You can put whatever dollar figure you want on that, but we have the highest inventory of houses that are attainable for a lot of middle class people. I don't know how much we can do, how much more we can do. I know Kitty Hawk was dealing with the accessory structure thing, and I don't think they've had too many. I think it's in the single digits. They've had people that have applied for doing this on their property, and at least one of them, maybe more, I'm not sure. I didn't want to bother them today with everything that's going on, to find out that they're having an issue of not having enough septic. At least one of the ones that applied submitted the plan to the health department, and they said it wouldn't work because they don't have enough septic. So, and that's definitely an issue we would run into here with our smaller lots in Avalon and some of the areas, especially a little bit up further north. I think we should, I think it's okay to look at it and then, have staff find if there's anything at all in here that we can make a difference on. That's fine, but as far as most of the things that they're asking for, I don't think we're going to be able to do.
So I'm just adding some of my thoughts to this. So each of the towns have been asked to look at specific things within their town. The county has been asked as well. And it's another one of these that I feel like we are each going to do a little piecemeal approach. And you got to start somewhere. So I get that. But I feel like we're throwing some darts at a much bigger issue, and we haven't, as a community, come to grips with what facet are we trying to solve when we say housing crisis. The definition between whether it's workforce or whether it's affordable, and what does affordable mean and who does that mean to, is so subjective. And we have seasonal workforce housing issues, and then we have professional year-round workforce housing issues. And so I feel like we're jumping into looking at different specifics without even knowing what target audience we're going to address the solution to. That's kind of rambling in a way, because I feel like even how we should tackle this needs to be a little systematic, more so. We are in the middle of, maybe beyond in the middle, but we're revising and updating our land use plan, so we're only a couple more months hopefully away from, I don't have the exact timeline of that. We are also going to be appointing a new commissioner in the future. Not sure the exact timeline on that. I feel like we've got some big things here that it may be better to get these things in order, make sure our ship's in order, and then try to strategically look at this, perhaps even with suggesting a joint retreat or work session just on this topic, to delve through each of these with our planning board and with our board of commissioners, because some of these things that they suggest may end up being a great idea, but then again, it may not. It may be a detrimental concept to some of the folks that would be living right beside that if we're not if the plan's not laid out well enough to what it's going to address or solve, or it could be creating a big, just an issue for our staff. I mean, the proposal of restricting the accessory dwelling to long-term rentals, I mean, how do you police and monitor that? And if you don't, you're gonna end up contributing to getting the highest return on investment for that, but yet it's not gonna solve any of what we're opening the door to try to solve. So my comments are not intended to be negative or anti-supportive of the concept. It's just, I think we need to have a more systematic and strategic way to address this. And the first thing is by having a much broader conversation and more of a free discussion type environment. And that's where maybe a work session with the planning board would be a way to, I know in the past when we've had some, just even on the land use plan, we have really good dialogue with ideas back and forth because we bring different perspectives to the table in more of a casual setting than this to try to hash through some of these topics. So I would lean more to trying to propose maybe a fall, like let's have our land use plan, let's have our new seated commissioner and then schedule that work session. And it may mean it's November, but that would also, John, give us the data maybe from the county by then and other towns to see if they have started any progress, what that is, and bring that and have a presentation on that at that same work session.
I think that's a very good idea. I support it. I think we have a few more months of feedback from the county, and then the planning board really brought a lot to the table when we had our land use plan workshop. I felt that quality dialogue was created and some really good ideas were shared, and I think it's a good way to go. If we're still addressing it we're setting a date, we're setting a goal to come back to this in a reasonable amount of time, I'm all for another work session around this.
I like the idea that what you brought up about seeing what other municipalities have been able to accomplish and kind of gauging where people are going with it. So I think it's a good idea as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Workshopping in the fall. Good with that.
To
Stay
be,
on top of what the others are doing and
Yes.
more up to date with that.
then we can look at the calendars and come back to our next meeting with some potential dates.
It'll give us a lot of insight.
Okay.
It
Wonderful.
still is a new thing that everybody's tackling, and I think a few more months of feedback and data really could be valuable.
Okay. Well, wonderful. You have some direction to move forward then. Thank you all. The next item under new business is item number 2, recommendations on capital projects. A and B. A is award for the 2018-2019 streets, drainage, and right-of-way improvements project. And Pete is here with us this evening. Welcome, Pete.
Well, it's that time of year again, Mayor and Commissioners. We have two things. It's exciting that we're getting ready to take on some more drainage and street repair in Whispering Pines. Every street in Whispering Pines in the project we're recommending to you will have its surface renewed. Some areas where there are actual failures will be patched, but most of it will get a simple overlay. And of course, while we're there, we'll do our traditional standard storm drainage treatment and look forward to the benefits that will bring. We'll be piggybacking off some existing assets that we have in the area in Holly Street, but also in the adjacent Ocean Acres subdivision. And I think long-term, if we persist in strengthening our network, building trunk lines, and expanding the percentage of the town that's within a couple hundred feet of a sock drain, we're going to continue to see us more resilient for the kind of challenges that we're going to be facing this week. So again, we had a very good design process. The integration with my firm and the town was very good on this, better than it ever has been. And the bidding community responded well, but the little sentence that I've been burying in my recommendation letter to you for about 5 years, that one day we're going to see coming out of the recession, a little inflationary uptick happened, and it got us this time. They were good bids, they just weren't the really great pricing that we were seeing in some cases. I still think it represents good value, and I recommend to the board the award to RPC and the other items regarding Whispering Pines that are contained in my three-page letter of recommendation addressed to Steve. And then if I could just say, we're also suggesting that we move on regarding item B and start earlier this year on the 1920 project so that our design process has time to be done in a deliberate way. We have found in some cases that with only a 3 or 4 month window between the time we get your approval, get the topo done, and the time it's ready to go out to bids, the process gets squeezed a little bit. We think we can further improve the quality of our designs if we have it a little bit longer and more deliberate. So we are asking for you to approve the 1920 street and drainage project, which would, it's sort of scattered. It picks up our next 3 priority poor street projects, which are Hayman, including the Circle and Westwood. It includes Town Hall Drive right out in front of us, and it includes 6th Avenue. So we would get on that, and the plan would be to put that out for bids in midsummer with an award in late summer, early fall, about this time of year, a year from now, but with a nice, long, deliberate design process. And with that, again, thank you for the confidence you've shown in us, and we're glad that it seems to be delivering good results for you, and I'll stand by for any questions.
Thank you so much. Okay, so item 2B, we'll take that first. Any comments, questions? It's for the Whispering Pines for 1819.
I believe that's 2A, isn't it?
That's
That's
two
what I
A.
was gonna ask.
Is that two A?
Did I say B?
Yeah.
2A. Yes, 2A is Whispering Pines, then we'll get to B. Thank you. 2A. Everybody, no comments? We're good? Good with it?
Good, yeah, I'm good about it.
How about from Mike from the street improvement committee, that's all, you guys were all on top of that and made some good recommendations there. Appreciate it.
Just today's.
No, some more.
No, I think a lot of the credit goes to staff and to people. We're just kind of, well, we do help out some. Take a little credit.
It's a little credit.
Well, if we are all supportive, a motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion, we approve recommendations for, you want me to read all this stuff in the back?
It is presented in the packet.
As presented under 2A
Yes.
in the packet.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the packet, the motion that's in the packet with all the bullets to cover that for Whispering Pines. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And then also for 2B, for the 1920 projects, the engineering design, a motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion that we approve budget amendment number 8 to appropriate unassigned fund balance for engineering design and bidding on the 2019-2020 street drainage and right-of-way improvements project, and to authorize the town manager to execute the agreement with American Engineering as presented in the form. Is that good enough?
That's perfect. There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion second, any other discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you very much.
Very much, ladies and gentlemen, stay safe and dry.
Thanks again, Steve. Thanks,
Steve.
Steve.
Good work.
Thank you.
Okay, next is new business item number 3. We have appointments to 3 different committees or boards. The first is the Historic Landmarks Commission. There's one position, it's currently held by Tony Dorn, who does desire to be reconsidered or considered for reappointment. Is there a motion regarding this,
So moved
motion to reappoint
to reappoint.
Tony? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay. Next is an appointment to the Dangerous Animal Appeals Board. It's a current seat held by Jerry Farless. Jerry desires to be reappointed.
I'll make a motion that we reappoint Jerry Farless to the Danger Animal Appeals Board.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and the, next, there's actually 4 positions for the Community Appearance Committee. We can take these in 2 different motions if you want, because 3 individuals wish to be reappointed. Skip Jones, Sue Kelly, and Melinda Migalski, each of them, their seats expire in October, and they do all 3 wish to be reappointed. Would there be a motion to reappoint?
I'll make a motion that we reappoint Skip Jones, Sue Kelly, and Melinda Migalski to the Community Appearance Commission.
Okay, there's a motion, is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then we have 1 additional seat to be appointed on the Community Appearance Committee. And the floor for discussion.
I called the 2 applicants. I got to speak to both of them. Mr. Schieffer really seemed interested. He had some pretty creative ideas about it. The other candidate, unfortunately, Mr. Dorn, wasn't in a position where he could have a long conversation with me about it. He seemed kind of have some family issues at the time. I couldn't really gauge him on his interest in the appointment or kind of what he felt like he could contribute to ZAC at the time. Just was an inconvenience, but I was really energized by my conversation with Bob, and I'd like to make a motion to appoint Robert Schieffer to the Community Appearance Commission.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great.
Thanks, take care of that, Sean.
And thanks to all of our volunteers who are serving on these great committees and boards. Thank you. All right, next we'll move on to committee reports. Does anyone have a committee report this evening?
Committee report on the tourism board? I'd like to. I don't have a video for you tonight. I'm sure most people would like to. It's almost 6 minutes long, so I figured I'd just take some notes from our July meeting. There was a request by Elizabethan Gardens for a $30,000 grant for they want to set up a children's program, an ongoing program, and that request was granted. The Graveyard of the Atlantic asked for an extension for their sign, or for their grant they were given for their sign because of the weather in July and early August. They weren't able to get that sign completed. So they asked for an extension, which was granted by the board. The director, Lee, he talked about the food truck showdown that was held in June, and of course, you know, we just had the other one just the other day. I haven't heard how that went. Does anybody know?
You know,
Facebook was blown up with it. I mean, a lot of people seem to have gone and enjoyed it.
That's good. That's good. And also, the board discussed adding some language to try to better manage the summer programs, because we, I think I mentioned once before, theoretically, somebody could come in and set up a carnival for a month, and we don't want that. So we're gonna look at some limitations on how much time it can be reserved for, and to be careful of what's brought in there also. We don't want to, have something in there too long that's going to directly compete with our businesses. The carnival was one that there's been a few complaints about, but I think those are being taken care of, so I don't think there'll be too much of an issue with that.
Was this year's carnival a little longer than the previous years?
I think,
Or two more?
was it longer or shorter? I think it might have been a little bit longer, but they're
A little bit longer, huh?
Yeah, but they're gonna, I think they're gonna try to limit it to like 4 or 5 days. I think it was 7 days.
Yeah.
I think they're gonna try to limit it. The money goes to charity, so you don't wanna get too hard on it.
Too hard.
So, the June statistics for occupancy was up 19%, and meals were up 4%. There's a caveat, there was 5 Saturdays in June, so, and there's only gonna be 4, there was only 4 in July, so we'll probably pay that back a little bit. And we have a marketing company that we've been dealing with for a good while, and oddly, their name is Buxton. They have a model where the advertising can be targeted. They have these models by all this stuff they do. It has names that I can't pronounce. So they're able to target people based on like thousands of different actuaries and such. And one of the things they recommended, which we're going to probably follow up on, is to increase TV programming in some of our markets. I think they're dropping the Pittsburgh market, and they're going to pick up Charlotte. I think they're going to try to do a little bit more in Charlotte. And there's a couple other cities that they're going to either increase or decrease in programming, and I don't have those exact towns here in front of me, but I think that's about it.
Anyone else?
It was almost as long as the video.
Just 3 quick announcements. A lot of this is already on the town's website. Kill Devil Hills Community Watch is going to meet next Wednesday, the 19th at 6:30 in this room. Saving Lives Task Force will meet next Tuesday, the 18th at 3:30 in the Dare County Municipal Building. And the Community Appearance Commission will have our next meeting on September 27th at 8:30 in this room as well.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to Commissioner's agenda. Commissioner Gray.
I only had three items that I wanted to mention, and we've already heard about a couple of them. The first one was the Neighborhood Watch meeting on August the 19th. I think that's, I'm hearing a lot of talk about it. I think we're gonna have some good participation. I'm pretty excited about that. Again, I wanna thank the police department, because they put a lot of time and effort in it, as well as one person in particular who happens to be with us tonight, Ms. Almoney. We thank you so much for your efforts. You've really taken that webpage and gone wild with it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Another item I wanted to talk about was everyone help their neighbor. We heard from the Nature Conservancy about that. I'm very excited about that. As I mentioned before, my grandmother was one of the ones that lived back in Nags Head Woods, and she was one of the people that was interviewed on that. It was really kind of interesting to hear her talk after not seeing her for so long. And so that was pretty interesting. I can't wait to see that event coming up on the 27th. That's about all I have, really.
Thank you. Commissioner Winley?
I have one thing to share, and I kind of would like to get everybody's feeling on this. I did send out an email about 10 days ago about making some updates to our special events and how the verbiage around that in town code. And specifically, I would like to make a couple updates that would allow permitted business to remain open when they are having special events, and to allow charitable events to occur in the commercial zone. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind. I definitely want to maintain an event permitting system. So if anybody wants to have an event, they still have to apply for a permit, let the town know about it. All of those, all of that policy will stay in place. I also would like to limit non-charity special events to non-summer peak months. My initial idea was September 15th and May 15th. That way, we have several marathons during that time. There's Bike Week, there's St. Patrick's Day. If an event would like to have, if a business would like to have a special event on site to complement those events, I think could be a real benefit to the town and the community overall. We could see it could be added employment during kind of the slower parts of the winter. It could kind of help occupancy in our hotels. I think there's a lot of wins here beyond just the direct benefit that these businesses could have. So my ask is, I'd be happy to share these ideas with the staff, but I don't want to burden them with extra work if there's no real, we don't have consensus to move forward.
Is it something like, I know on Bike Week, there's some places in Kitty Hawk that have stuff going on their property. Is that kind of what you're looking at?
Roughly. Correct. And I think it enhances Bike Week. I mean, it's a big event, and I think it's in the fall, and then our businesses can kind of reap more benefits from it, bring more attention to it, and hopefully a more positive turnout for participation.
And we have some type of process now, right, that businesses can apply if someone wanted to do something during Bike Week?
What you see in Bike Week that you see in Kitty Hawk used to be in Kill Devil Hills. They just moved locations. We already allow non-charitable events wrapped into a charitable, overall charitable event, which Bike Week does do a lot of charitable events and their proceeds go. You can have non-charitable vendors at the event that they can make money, and that is allowed in the fall and the shoulder seasons. So we have that. I think that's what you're saying, that we allow that.
Somewhat. I had a couple, I looked through, I sent an email to staff a couple months ago, I got to read it, there's a couple changes I was interested in, I can forward that to everybody else, but I don't want to create undue burden for people if it's not something there's genuine interest in pursuing. I just wanted to bounce it off of us and something we'll take a look at, and we can take that next step first.
How do we deal with parking in those situations?
Part of the application, they have to give us a parking plan, and they have to show that they have enough parking to have the event. And the reason the businesses currently can't be open during an event, if there is a business there, is because the business itself has required parking. And so, if you're having an event in a parking lot or inside the business, you're gonna have an overlap in parking, you're gonna probably end up with some parking issues. We've had some in the past.
So that's kind of a hurdle we have to jump over, right? I'm assuming.
Follow the direction of the board.
You always say that.
Yeah, the parking, and I don't know what the, so we need more discussion on this. I don't know what the hurdles are, and I'm trying to think specifically, the specific things that you were looking at wanting to potentially change. I know during Bike Week, when I drive by, there's, I'm not gonna name names, but a business on the bypass during Bike Week with cars all over the side of the road. It gives me just a little anxiety of something bad's gonna happen at some point, people going across the street, because there's not enough parking. And so I have a little bit of a concern of opening that here, and I know I don't believe we're just speaking Bike Week, but if we were to have bigger events and you can't control the parking, and then you start parking along the bypass, I mean, that to me is just so dangerous and scary I just feel like it's a public safety issue at some point.
Well, it's kind of tying back to what we said earlier with the board's, the Chamber of Commerce's recommendations. Maybe we can look at what is Kitty Hawk doing differently than what we do. Maybe consider those changes for our town. And maybe find out how they are monitoring parking in this situation. So a little more homework in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, if you would like to look into that, or if they're not, do they wish they were? So for example, that one case is in Kitty Hawk, and have they had issues, or maybe my fears are unfounded, and if they are, I'm okay with that too. Or are there, as part of a parking plan, does that include if it's off-site parking and they're managing that as part of their plan? Do we allow that as an option? I don't know the answer to that, but if we don't, is that something we should consider? Maybe that would be another way to address the parking situation.
Maybe an agreement between two businesses. If there's a restaurant and they have a bank or real estate agency next door to have after hours parking at another spot, just something that could be just an idea that could work.
I tried to answer your email, and I did a little research on And I looked at Kitty Hawk and I looked at Nags Head. It's gonna sound bad any way I say it, but it seemed like Nags Head was all over the page because they had so many different events that they allow. That they had a special permit for one event, and then another route that they went for a different event. And if it was another event, they went to another area. So I finally got to a point with Nags Head, I said, but I can't figure this out, so I'm gonna leave it alone. So I looked at Manio and I looked at Kitty Hawk. They seem to have a program where, they have special events that are couched through the, town manager's, office. And it's an approval process where the town manager approves, denies, whatever. And then, they go through this process. If it's denied, it goes through the board. I'm not advocating that, but it gave me an idea that maybe we need to ask the town manager to talk with the other towns, with Kitty Hawk and with, Manio or any of the other municipalities and see how they handle this. In as much as being able to let our businesses set up, special events where they have vendors that come in, and, you know, participate in different, events that are going on regionally. That was just an idea I had. And then, you know, I'm not so sure. I have another thought process on this as well. I know that, we have a parking ordinance and it applies to different businesses and requires parking. I'm not so sure that we don't need to revisit that issue and take a look at, you know, one of the things that pops out in my mind is banks. You know, we require banks to have a specific number of parking spaces. Well, not a lot of people go to banks anymore. They do their banking online. So is that, you know, something that we need to look at and reevaluate our parking ordinance? And I think that's probably a question that needs to go to the planning board and have them look at that to see if there needs to be any adjustments, because times change. I don't know when that was actually put into place. Times change. And maybe we can change some of the requirements. And that was really the main thrust of what I tried to answer to your email, with one fear. And one fear is I remember how some of this came about. At one particular point in time in the county of Kill Little Hills, we had itinerant merchants. And we had people coming in on the weekends when staff wasn't there. And they were actually setting up amusement rides in the parking lots of some of the fast food restaurants. And, you know, it led to a whole host of problems and questions. People said, wait a minute, who's checking this amusement ride to make sure that it's safe for people to participate on? And I think that generated a lot of, you know, the things that we're looking at now as far as special use permits and different people setting up on a business parking lot. I seem to remember that, you know, rather vividly. I think that there was I think they called it an octopus or something, where it had the pods and people got in, it spun around. And it set up in one of the local fast food restaurants, and everybody said, oh my God, you know, what are we letting happen here? So I think that's how it started. But that was some of the comments that I made in trying to answer your email. So that's pretty much my thoughts or comments.
Mike, do you have anything else?
Something could be looked at, parking's a big issue.
Yeah, one thing that I was thinking of is, so, you know, we do have an application process right now, and it may be that it would be helpful to specifically know if there's items in there that you feel like are holding things back from things that you want to see in the town that we, so you look at the specific language, I guess, and yeah, because I feel like there's some maybe discrepancy in or confusion that we do allow these things, but maybe folks don't think we allow these things. That might, so an education awareness of, if anyone, you know, I don't know if this is driven by someone who wants to do something who doesn't think they can do something, maybe first they need to see what our application is and what we do allow, because we do allow special events with vendors, even if the vendor's not a for-profit vendor, if it's under a larger umbrella, we do allow it. And then what are the issues that they're running into, or the issue is they just didn't think we did it. And then from there specifically can bring something back if it's not for discussion. Or, and to follow up, Sherry, when you were talking about the item with parking, we may need to have multiple items under this planning board retreat. I mean, I know we want to talk about the chamber concepts and the thing that they threw out, but it may be that if you have specific suggestions that you want to discuss, we could use that forum since we're already gonna all be there together to talk about parking.
And I think that's fine. I think John's email just kind of sparked that thought in my mind is, you know, are we too restrictive as far as our parking requirements? Do we require too much parking? And that was just a side note that came up to me, and banks specifically are what brought that to my mind. I actually am in favor of being able to come up with, devise a plan where we are able to forgive a certain percentage, and I think I've talked about this before, where we can give a certain percentage where a business can hold a vendor tin or whatever they use to sell. You know, I think that we have some room in some of the businesses in town where we could forgive 10% or 15% of their parking requirements to let them set up vendors. That's just a thought of mine. Valid, I don't know if it is or not, but I think it's something we need to look at and decide if we can do it. You know, if they have 45 spots or something like that that they're required to have by our parking ordinance, you know, are we able to let them give up 3 or 4 spots where they can put up a vendor spot? You know, I'm looking at ways to try to make it a little more helpful for them to participate in some of the regional activities that are going on, and not specifically like that.
Sure, well, and that's what, I mean, that's why I was like, this is much broader than just
You
that.
guys had me scared to even talk there for a minute. Everybody was hitting play for you.
Yeah. But I think through that application process, if we were going to make any of those, you know, just like sharing parking with a neighboring business or something would be part of that application process of how you justify it. And how that differs from what we allow now, I don't know, so to look into that.
You know, I know that I've got a lot of comments in the past about people that, you know, whether it was ill-conceived or not, whether they really knew that they could or couldn't do it, but they would say, you know, I can't do this because of, and you may be getting the same, that might be where you're getting this from too. Because I know I have a lot of comments in that respect.
Well, would it be helpful at a future meeting to have, I mean, does Donna manage that? The whole application process or just have someone walk through what the current application process is and what it covers? Would that be just kind of an educational as a starting point for us?
Sure.
Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
That'd be a benefit, and that would give us a starting point to say, okay, then we can hear feedback, does that work? If not, what needs to be adjusted or looked at? Okay.
We can certainly do that at the October meeting if you would like. I know we've discussed that that's also going to be the public forum. Or would you prefer to hold it off until November?
I think we can probably hold off.
We have 1 or 2 meetings.
My thought would be to hold that to November. And then we would concentrate on the public forum.
Okay, we'll do November.
That's just my thought.
That's
All
fine.
right, we'll do.
Okay, great, thank you. John, did you have anything else that was still under your agenda, sorry?
That's all I have, thank you.
Okay, certainly.
Sounds good, thank you.
Okay. Couple items under Mayor's agenda. In your packet is the announcement of Fire Prevention Week, October 7th through the 13th. In the packet is a proclamation that recognizes Kill Hills' participation in spreading National Fire Protection Association's important message: look, listen, learn, be aware, fire can happen anywhere. And as in previous years during this time, our fire department is going to be really busy with lots of fun fire prevention activities. They'll be visiting Kitty Hawk Elementary, First Flight Elementary, and Nags Elementary schools to do education on fire safety for students. They're also holding a public open house on Tuesday, October 9th from 5 to 7 at Station 14 right there in Kill Hills. Chief, anything You want to add to that?
You've done a great job, Mayor.
You didn't have to add that, but fire prevention. So I know Chief and the firefighters would love for the community to come out and participate in October 9th's event. And with that, I would like to make a motion that we adopt the proclamation declaring October 7th through the 13th as Fire Prevention Week in Kill Devil Hills.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The only other thing I was going to talk about, since I know we mentioned it just before moving into public comment, is Hurricane Florence. And just stress to folks to please pay attention to alerts and notices. I know we'll be starting a countywide evacuation order tomorrow morning. Today it went into effect for Hatteras Island. This is for residents and non-residents or visitors. You know, we are in the cone for sure. There's going to be impact, even if we do not take any type of direct hit. The rain, this could be just a catastrophic rain event. There are projections for the storm to move on shore wherever it does and then stall or slow down dramatically where it's been moving at a decent pace. When that happens, a lot of moisture will be dropped. We know our ground's still saturated in spots. If that occurs and we have torrential downpours, we are going to have freshwater flooding events, much less if we have any ocean overwash issues or storm surge. So please, I can't stress enough for folks to pay attention and heed the warnings and alerts. And, you know, your personal safety and the safety of your family should be the most important factor when making your decisions. I think we'll know a lot more in the next 24 hours, but if this storm shifts, you know, the projections have been more of a landfall around the Wilmington area. If it shifts even 50 miles north, we could have unprecedented impacts here that people have never seen in their lifetime. So I just can't stress enough for people to remain vigilant and cognizant, and we will do the very best we can to keep folks informed. If you choose not to evacuate and the storm conditions get to a certain point where we cannot safely put our folks out on the road, then you're making that decision at your own risk to stay. So I just felt like since we had a meeting a few nights before the storm, that it's important to share that message with folks.
By the way, the 5 o'clock update moved the cone northward somewhat, so we're a little closer to the middle now. And it's up to 140. So.
It intensified dramatically today. So this is no small event. So. Okay, with that, we will turn to the town manager's agenda.
I apologize for not mentioning this earlier during introductions and presentations, but I would like to point out our new Assistant Planning Director, Cameron Ray. He's not new to the town, but he is in his new position.
Congratulations.
Talk about our wonderful conscientious employees, even though Brian Brightville is leaving us and is going to be relocating out to Asheville, he offered to Meredith today to stay to help us through any damage assessment that we would need. And it's great.
Wow, that was really nice. Congratulations, Cam. We're excited and happy for you and for us.
We are. That's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Town attorney's agenda?
Congrats, Karen. That's it.
The consent agenda.
Yes, ma'am. We've got 7 items this evening. First is the minutes from the August 22nd, 2018. Second is to record our grant funds from the Visitors Bureau for the July 4th fireworks celebration. July monthly reports included. Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program. This was a grant that was applied for by our fire department, received an amount of $29,604. This is to upgrade the weight equipment and the, for more functional and safe workout equipment in the weight room. That's available to all Kill Devil Hills employees, not just the fire department, but it is located up there. To record the consensus approval of the procedure and applications to fill a position on the Board of Commissioners. The board did give us that consensus, so we could go ahead and get that out. Thank you. Number 6 is the, if you remember a few meetings ago, you adopted the annual beach nourishment monitoring plan. And in talking with our engineers, they have recommended an additional surveying parallel to the shoreline at intervals of 200 feet from shore to approximately 3,000 feet offshore. They feel that this will provide a more accurate picture of sound movement in the near shore. We do have the monies available for that, but we just wanted to keep a paper trail. This is, as you recall, all part of our being able to receive FEMA monies for our beach, should that need arise. And then lastly, this was added today because of the hurricane. I'd like to ask the board's approval to waive building permit fees for construction and necessary repairs that may be because of damage from the hurricane. This would go through March of 2019. People would still need to visit our planning department. You still need to get a permit. There just would not be a fee. And we'd recommend approval of the consent agenda as provided, or presented, excuse me.
So moved.
Very good.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please stand up saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't want to hold up the vote, but I do want to call attention to item 5. There has been information already released by the town, but as many of you know, Commissioner Rubottom announced her pending resignation from the board. We do not have a date. She couldn't be with us tonight. She had a conflict, but she'll be at our October meeting. When she does provide a date that she's moving to Currituck, then we will look to fill the position the board decided, which is what was recorded in the consent agenda, to do an application process. So we are accepting applications until the 17th, I believe.
Yes, ma'am.
So if anyone's interested, they can contact our town clerk to get an application. And then those will be reviewed, and we will have at a future meeting discussion of those applications, and the board would select the candidate to appoint to the seat. So we look forward to receiving applications, as it's certainly an important seat to fill. All right, we are now back to the second time set aside this evening for public comment. Is there anyone back?
Real quick, sorry.
Absolutely. Welcome.
Matt Walker, 439 West Walker Street. I'm just gonna proceed real quick for Surf Rider. Our Beach Sweep and Trash Fest is next Saturday, week from whatever this Saturday, 22nd. So come on out 9 to 12, clean the beach, come to the brew station afterwards, and do the Trash Fest thing. That's all part of Surf Aloris, which is a big surfing event that's going on. And then I was just gonna say part 2 is, as you guys are digging into this whole zoning issue, just consider water quality. That's obviously a big part of what will come here, and obviously density brings its own issues when it comes to water quality. So just as you're looking at the pros and cons, just wanted to put that out there. And everyone stay safe, and thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, as always.
Anyone else? No takers? Okay. All right, anything else from the board?
One quick response, the Community Affairs Commission will have a table in the brewing station for the after party.
Cool.
Be there.
With our banner.
With our banner.
That's right.
Portable ashtrays. There you go. And lots of smiles, too.
All right, everybody. Well, stay safe, and with that, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second, anything? All those in favor? Aye. All right, good night.
Thanks, everybody.
See you later.